Let's go to Rand Paul from Washington, who is one of our favorites. And Rand, we beg you to make sense. Help us understand your vote for Hagel.
Yeah, I hope I can. It's a lot of people have been confused by this, but I'll try the best I can to explain it to you. First of all, I was the deciding vote to filibuster him, and the only way to defeat him was through filibuster. The only way to delay and get information was through the filibuster. So we had 41 votes. I was called and lobbied hard from the other side to change on the 41. I was the 41st vote to keep the filibuster going the first time. Within 3 days, many Republicans announced they weren't going to filibuster anymore, and yet we didn't get any information, which is why we were filibustering. We never had 51 votes to defeat him, but we had 41 for a while. So we come back the next week, and I vote again to filibuster him. So I was one of 27. But that's when the game was over. There was no stopping him when 27 voted. 14 people bailed on us, and that's when Hagel was nominated. On the final passage, I did vote to allow him to go through, mainly because I've said all along that the way I treat political appointees is that for the most part I give deference to the president. I will fight tooth and nail to get information and to get information in advance. But in this case, I decided that no information came forward that would have eventually disqualified him.
Okay, so wait a minute. So I can respect that because you're an advise and consent kind of guy, right? That's the president
right.
has.
And we're still fighting the same battle, but I think a bigger constitutional battle on Brennan, because here we're fighting not just the person or previous statements. We're fighting the principle of whether an American can be killed in America by a drone strike. And so, Brennan, we think we're going to get a victory on this. They backed down.
Wait.
Yesterday,
wait.
And they pushed that off to next week.
Okay, hang on just a second, because I want to hear the Brennan thing first, but I want to close off the Hagel thing first. Why do you vote to support him? Why wouldn't you vote present or no? You're fine with him? You fine with Hagel?
No, it's sort of I guess it's one of these things where I don't treat it the same as an issue. I treat it as a presidential nomination to a political office. And so I think the president does have the right to form his cabinet. These are political people. Like I voted for John Kerry, and I got some grief for that too. I agree with nothing that Kerry represents. There are many disagreements I have with both Kerry and Hagel and Lew. And in the end, I just have made the decision that on these type of appointees, unless I can find information that they've taken money from a foreign government or given us information that was not accurate, then I go ahead and let the president make his political appointees.
All right, so you were filibustering because you wanted more information. You weren't filibustering to stop his confirmation.
I think that's the best way to describe it. I was joining the Republicans in saying we want more information. Also, for another reason, an ulterior motive was I also wanted Republicans to stick together to try to help me get information on Brennan. And one of the things that people may or may not realize about this place up here is that by being part of that filibuster team, I'm also able to get some people to help me now on the Brennan nomination. And I think I've got him stymied in committee long enough that I think the White House is going to announce publicly that they're not going to do drone strikes in the U.S. And to me, I think that's it just means they're going to obey the law, but it's a big step forward because they've been refusing to say that they won't do this.
Well, they've said a lot of things. I don't believe any of them. These guys are, I think, Hagel says that America is, or agrees with the statement that America is a bully. Brennan is in a different category entirely. They're all anti-Western, I think, American soldier, and they're anti-Israel. But you have Brennan now. Will you vote against Brennan? Because Brennan is not just about drone strikes. That's a very big deal. But Brennan he's in charge of the CIA, and he's a disturbing individual to have on any team.
See, I think the leverage of the filibuster with this is what I'm using to try to get the White House to admit publicly. And if they do admit publicly that they will not and do not claim the authority to do drone strikes in America, basically I will have created a precedent. Even though it's not a law, it'll have been a president admitting that he doesn't have authority. And no president, Republican or Democrat, likes to ever admit that they don't have the authority. Some of this came out of the Bush administration. They said that they had inherent powers to do pretty much what they wanted during war. And this was what was disturbing about Brennan, saying that he has no geographical limitation to his drone strikes. That's why we then ask, well, if you have no geographical limitation, what about Seattle or Houston? And so I think the point is, and everybody can have a different opinion. I don't know that there's necessarily a right or wrong. For example, we have district judges that we have to nominate. Sometimes they go 100 to nothing. Often they're 99 to nothing. And people don't oppose them, even though they know the president's appointing people we disagree with. They've just made the decision that there's a certain level you have to rise to stop these people. And then some people have different criteria when it's looking at circuit court judges or Supreme Court judges, because they're higher positions and they're lifetime positions. It's hard to have an absolute standard for how you judge people on nominations, but I have a lower standard for temporary political cabinet members than I do for lifelong participants.
Do you ever look at the can you explain the standard that you hold for those offices? Because those are temporary and they are presidentially appointed, but they're pretty huge positions and really affect our foreign policy. And so do you have a different standard for those guys, or what is your standard on that? And do you ever look at the whole picture of what the team he's assembling? It's a disturbing team.
Yeah, I do. The thing is that I don't think ever in the history of our country have we been denying cabinet members. So there really isn't a precedent. There may have been one or two in our history who have been denied. And so I think the bar for who you're going to deny, also the shoe will be on the other foot someday. We're going to have a Republican president, and do we want every one of the cabinet members to be filibustered on our side?
If the radicals, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
You talk about the, yes.
Anti-American Marxist or anti-Western radicals, yes.
But to them, when there's a Republican president who appoints people who believe in the Constitution, who are strict constructionists, they're going to call that radical.
Well, I will tell you, they already do. I mean, look, Rand, I really, really respect you, and I respect the way you read the Constitution and look at the Constitution, follow the Constitution. Nobody's doing that. And I'm just frustrated, so I don't mean any disrespect here. I'm a little frustrated because
I think it can be an honest disagreement, because to tell you the truth, I struggle with what the standard is for making the votes on these, and I'm trying to have a consistent standard, and that's why
I know.
In voting for Kerry, I think that there's really two ways to look at this. It's either a no on all of these, or once you begin a yes process, it's a yes on all of these.
So you're saying then that you will...
I don't know.
Wait, you're saying then you will vote for Brennan if he gets there?
It depends on, I'm going to do everything I can to stop him until we get a public pronouncement from the White House saying they won't kill Americans on American soil without judicial review.
And Senator Paul, you seem to be subscribing to the thought process that because the Constitution allows him to pick his cabinet,
it is advise and consent.
But also, however, the Senate has the right not to approve the guy too. So that too is constitutional. So why not exercise that right and stop these guys?
As a practical matter, we have 45 votes, and we get 41 to filibuster. So we try to get together a group to stop. With Brennan, see, because people are demoralized, and I think the other thing that's important for people to realize, the most important vote was the filibuster vote. Once 14 people, and really see the question needs to be asked not to the 4 of us who voted on final passage, but to the 14 who bailed on the filibuster, who voted with us on the first filibuster, but then bailed on the second.
Why did they bail?
Once that was over, then the fight was done for. But it's the same on Brennan. I'm not going to get 41 to filibuster him. It's going to be me and a handful of others. But fortunately with Brennan, I have Democrats on the Intelligence Committee who are concerned about civil liberties too. And so I think we have a chance of stopping. So a lot of the nomination thing is a fight for information, a fight for concessions and public concessions, knowing ultimately that we cannot defeat any of his nominees. They have 55 votes. and there is no nominee that is going to be defeated.
Okay, let me change real quick because I'm running out of time here. Please tell me the sequester stands.
I think it does, and I have a bill that says we do the sequester even without any layoffs, and proves to the president that we have places we could cut spending and not lay anybody off. We do it by not rehiring anybody who retires. That's about 100,000 workers a year. We do it by paying federal workers the same as private workers. That's a 16% cut in pay. We do it by cutting their travel budget by 25%. And we do it by cutting out 50% of foreign aid and having competitive contracts, and that gets to $85 billion in 1 year.
Bob Woodward is under attack, and he says the White House threatened him. I absolutely believe it, and they said you're going to regret it. We already have now the smear campaign, the Saul Alinsky tactics happening from The Nation, Center for American Progress, all of these, typical organizations smearing him. They're taking down. They're threatening Woodward. Which, if you can get away with threatening Woodward, the rest of the pack will sit in the back. They're taking out the strongest.
I think it's going to backfire on him, though, because I think already people are starting to get the message that the sequester was the president's idea, that the sequester is just a slowdown in the rate of growth. It's not even really significant cuts over 10 years. And that the president's parading a bunch of employees, policemen and firemen, who really aren't paid for by the federal government. Yes. So he's really being dishonest with us.
But this time the American people are going to wake up, or the press, better yet, is going to wake up.
Well, I think what we're going to do is there's more resolve now for letting the sequester go through. Republicans have been wobbly on this, and many are, trying to trade 1 year's cuts for 10 years cuts, which I won't support, and most of the conservatives up here won't support. Good. The bottom line is it looks like there's going to be some show votes today in the Senate. They'll both be defeated. And then I think what happens is the sequester goes through, and I think what people will find out is that the president's been making up all this stuff about everybody losing their job, particularly firemen and policemen who are not really paid for by the federal government.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Senator Rand Paul.
Thanks, Glenn.
All right, bye-bye.